morning to you and welcome to On the Mark with Mark Pappa. I'm Gary Byron. Mark is the president and CEO of Financial Resources Group. They're based out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. You can find them online at www.frplan.com. More importantly, I want you to write this number down. You can call it right now. Mark's a little busy, but, he'll take your message, or better yet, call him when the show's over. Call him sometime today or this weekend or early part of next week. Bottom line is to call him and meet with him. This could be really one of the best phone calls that you've ever made for yourself and maybe even your family. Here, write this number down, 860-657-8380. I'll repeat that for you again. Here we go, 860-657-8380. Just make sure that you give that number a call. Mark, good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning, Gary. Good to be back.
How was your week?
It was fine. It's just a busy time of year.
Yeah, it is.
I have that tax business and tax return planning. And
we're in the thick of things here.
Yeah. So we're making the transition, though. I've got a lot of other hands to help me out. And this will be the last year that I'm really pounding the keyboards on taxes. I'll work with my top clients and make sure that we take care of their taxes so I can make sure they pay the least amount of taxes legally, by the way. Hopefully your advisor can do that for you if you're listening. I actually can help you pay the least amount of taxes legally, help reduce your capital gains tax to next to zero, nice. And make sure you're not paying taxes on money you're not using. And even just the other day, I saw an example, and this was not a super wealthy person. They got hit with a $27,000 capital gain on one of their mutual funds. And I was like, do you realize what just happened here? And he's like, well, no, I didn't realize that. And I said, yeah, has your advisor ever talked to you about that? And he goes, no, never. He says, I'm making money. I said, but what if you can make the same money and not have to pay that capital gain? Right? And there was a mutual fund that kicked off like a huge, it means the managers are trading willy-nilly, trying to beat their benchmark and just passing on all the expenses and taxes onto you. When they could have just been buy and hold, and you would have been probably better off anyway. So those are the little things we like to see. So that's kind of why I stay active in taxes, is so that I can help people. It's a huge part of your financial plan. It is. And people ignore it, and, they tend to ignore it, tend to brush it off and say, well, they feel guilty about. Well, honest answer is there's no reason why you should be paying more than you legally should. So
good. All right. Well, we are in the thick of things. When you think of taxes, hopefully they do think of you. Last week's show was so successful. I heard from a few people. Today's show is actually a continuation from yesterday. And I want to kind of get right into the thick of things here and start talking about the private lending market. Because there have been some alarming headlines, Mark, about major firms limiting investor withdrawals. I mean, I'm sure you must have heard of this. If I've heard of it, you must have.
Oh, yeah.
Explain why. So what's happening and why should people who actually should be paying attention to this?
All right. Yeah. And for the benefit of the audience, I just wanted to.
Your disclaimer, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll get that. I'll get the disclaimer going. But for the benefit of the audience, this is something I wanted to cover last week. Unfortunately, ran out of time. However, if you own one of these private credit funds, give us a call, because we may have a way to help you a little bit. The big deal here is 2 years ago, well, it wasn't 2 years ago, it was September of 2024. I was in New York City for a conference, and here I am sitting in a steakhouse in New York, and one of those guys from this company, Blue Owl, comes up, and they were launching a private lending exchange-traded fund, which I thought was, this is a really cool, innovative product. But, I had my skeptic years were open long before this guy showed up to the party. I had read that they were raising $50 billion for a European and Asian fund. And I said to myself, all I asked him is one simple question at the dinner, because it was a Q&A. I said, how many good deals with all the money you guys have raised? Now, this is at the point where this industry at that point had probably raised over $1 trillion for these products. Wow. Now it's $2 trillion. I don't know the exact number, but I said, how many good loans, how many good deals are available for the amount of money you guys are raising? And it was like I hit this guy. It was like he was like a deer in the headlights. He choked. He couldn't answer. And he kind of froze, and then they kind of stopped him, and he went on to another question. And this gentleman next to me, who was pretty well-heeled guy, very smart, Yale grad, looked at me, he winked, and he laughed. He goes, "It's not going to end well, kid." And I said, exactly. So I hadn't been a big believer in this because that, to me, is shadow banking, right? It's not under the direct. Now, the Fed's watching what's going on, but it's not under their direct purview, like the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the banking regulator ultimately. But so I'm like, God only knows what's going on. And I said that night, all it's going to take is one bad deal to blow up, one bad loan, one fraud, one thing here or there for people to start asking questions. That happened a while back. And so they saw a couple loans blow up, slowly but surely, more and more loans, little by little, starts dribbling out. And more recently, you've seen in the headlines like 3 weeks ago, that you can't get liquid on these funds. So you knew that when you went in, by the way, when you signed that paperwork. Hopefully, if your advisor was disclosing that, meaning that, it's not a fully liquid fund, you can't just sell out of it. So when people went to go redeem their money, they were like, they started restricting people from getting their money. Normally, they let you get a little bit out each quarter for emergencies or whatever, and they started to restrict those deals. In fact, even before that, there was a point in time where they did that, and then they said, okay, no, we made a mistake. That was Blue Owl. Then told everyone everything is fine. But now what's happening is we're learning that about 30% of the money that was lent to these companies were also software companies, and the software companies are under a lot of pressure because of that company, Claude, right? The Claude version
from
of
Anthropic.
AI, Anthropic,
yeah.
And that's caused a lot of trouble. Thank you for the assist there.
I knew you knew that, Mark.
Yeah, no, my brain is, I've got a few spark plugs that need to be changed during this time of year. It's so busy, but, so we started seeing that. So it led up to this point where, BlackRock's fund, and, the Blue Owl Capital Fund, you've seen BlackRock have some redemptions. You've seen their their equities, their stocks have just been cutting, 20, 30, 40% to the downside. So it's just been a very, very interesting, difficult time. And then now our friends at Goldman Sachs, right, who love to play both sides of the aisles because they actually do private lending, are also came up very recently. It was a very obscure post, but they're actually pitching hedge funds on complex derivative instruments called total return swaps. So I shouldn't even be bringing this up to the regular, but a total, you can't even get a total return swap.
What is that?
I won't even get into it, Gary, but it's a very sophisticated strategy it's very similar to what credit default swaps that Warren Buffett said were weapons of financial mass destruction. But those are the instruments that the big hedge funds used to short the mortgage market before the 2008 collapse, and they all made billions of dollars. So what this is, these are other products that Goldman is actually pitching its clients. They're approaching hedge funds. You have to have, I think, what they call you have to have like a minimum of $10 million in a prime brokerage account just to access those type of products, which, it's a super sophisticated, highly accredited. Only the smartest people are going to get access to that. To short the market, though, so that's kind of scary because here we go. I think they're starting to see that there's a problem, and I think everybody listening to this on their podcast need to on the radio need to know whether they own these private credit funds or not. Because I was getting a lot of calls from all these private lenders. Hey, we've got 9%, 11%, 10%. And I said, don't worry, we're all set. I said, we have our own product, which was through a highly credible company, Lord Abbott, that did extremely well we've owned it, since 2020, through the good and the bad. And it was a short-term lending and had a whole bunch of different types of deals in it, but it wasn't just private loans. It was a very, very small percentage that was paying us a great yield. So we were like, but we actually liquidated that last quarter, not because it grew too big. Mm-hmm. We didn't liquidate the whole thing, but we cut it down significantly only because I was afraid of the sentiment that's going to come from private credit. My fear is it's a $2 trillion, market. I don't think everything's going to zero, but I do think that if there is a place that can cause some turbulence and a potential black swan, it's that. So I forget Iran and all this other stuff going on. That's an area that's problematic because that same thing happened in long-term capital. That's a very similar thing that happened with the housing market. It's you know what I'm saying, right? So that type of thing is what really scares the heck out of investors. So we have to keep we're keeping a very, very close watch on what's happening there.
So what would you suggest then? If someone who's, somebody who's already may have exposure to these type of funds, what should they do?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you can't get out of them, so you're kind of stuck.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, wait and see, and wait for them, the opportunity for them to open up. I really don't know. There may be other opportunities, but bottom line is, they were never designed for the faint of heart. They were paying great yields, though.
All right.
So if that was not, and my point is, if you have an advisor that sold you one of those funds and didn't disclose all these different things that I'm talking about today, you need to give me a call. Because at the very least, I might find a way to help you at least offset the pain you might be you're about to feel. But Let
me ask you a question I've asked you a while back. I don't think I've asked you this recently, though, especially in light of the conversation that we've been having weekly on this show. Why should people work with your company, Financial Resources Group out of Glastonbury, rather than simply owning an index fund or a mutual fund from one of those, those big brokerages?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, Gary. I think many of them do themselves. They do a good job. There's people who do a good job. I think most do-it-yourselfers I meet tend to be taking on way more risk, and these are the people that are not afraid of anything. They're fearless. There's nothing I can do for them. They're fearless, right? They are. They're fearless. They'll have all their money in, 2-3 positions. They take big bets. I can't help people like that. I'm looking for the family who wants to do something very simple, and that's a goals-based type plan, right? So, and it's not my goals, Gary. So, like when you go to certain firms, it's the firm is going to interview you. They're going to get to know you. They're going to fill out your risk tolerance questionnaire. They might have some financial planning software where they can get you organized, and it's all feel good stuff. The bottom line, though, is in a lot of cases when I see people come to me, I have a financial planner. I said, "Oh, well, when's the last time you updated your plan?" And I'm like, "What plan? Where is your plan? Is there a plan?" Mm-hmm. And and a lot of times I don't see anything or hard written plan. So what we love to do is work in the sense of working on a goals-based plan. Now, Gary, am I asking my clients? Now, I'm not asking these questions because my goal is to sell them something. Am I asking these questions because it's my goal to get to know them so that they can decide what's best for them, right? Everything that we do
good to hear.
Is to help you lead yourself down a path to understand what's best for you. When you go to a diet doctor, it's not. It doesn't say. Then the doctor says, "Just go starve yourself. You lose weight." We know that's not going to happen. You need to change your nutrition. You need to change your habits. You might have to walk a little more. You might have to go to the gym. You might have to, take a different supplement. You might have to get blood work. When you really do all the work, and then all of a sudden you meet someone who lost 15 or 20 pounds, you ask them what they did. Now, everyone else just wants Ozempic, right? And we don't want to
put the work in.
We're not the Ozempic. We put the work in. We're going to put the work in so you have better long-term health and better long-term outcomes.
Then it's pretty obviously listening to your answer.
Based on your goals, your values, and all the different things that you think are important, not what's important to us, not what makes us the most money. It's about what's going to be best for you.
I like hearing that you flat out operate differently than the big banks, the wirehouses, the broker dealers.
And to their credit, I'm sure there's certain advisors that are in those industries, that in those positions, that are doing what I do. But I don't know if that's the norm. I also think a lot of those advisors get frustrated, and then they end up becoming an RIA like me because they want to do the right thing, but the company won't let them, or the company wants to put them in a box to say, no, you have to put it in this program, or these are the. Remember, I talked about the research list and the funds that you're allowed to buy, or the programs you're allowed to buy. They don't give you the same level of autonomy as I have, and I also can't build relationships. Even if you talk to some of the I mentioned last time Astoria advisors.
Oh, last week, yeah.
they are, you have to fight your way into these companies. They're not just going to let you walk in the door and say, hey, come on, get on our platform and, let our advisors go willy-nilly. Right? They're not going to let you do that. So it's a club.
Well, you're very different at the core. So then you have this goals meeting. I heard you speak of that a while back. So, what does that even look like? Like, what happens in that room?
Gary, it's got to be one of the most simple meetings you're ever going to have.
Oh, good. I like that.
However, it's not so simple because it's the goals meeting is our very, very first meeting, Gary, is called the goals meeting. That's how it's so that we do goals-based financial planning. So essentially, the first meeting should be called the goals meeting, right? What are your goals?
Makes sense, yeah.
And I'm not going to give away all the secrets of that, but we do ask for things like, we want to know who you are, how many kids you have, how many grandkids you have, and where do you want your money to go? Do you want to leave your kids lots of money, or do you want to make sure you have a good time spending it? And make sure. So we talk about things like estate planning, and we talk about your goals of estate planning. Sometimes we might find out that one of the children might have been adopted. And so they need to set money aside for that, or one of their children might be special needs, and we have to set aside money for that. Or we have to find out that this one's never going to have any kids, but you get into it. We ask about their will, their trust, their power of attorney. When was that updated last? When was your home insurance last reviewed? How much life insurance do you have? Do you still need life insurance? Don't need life insurance? Do you have long-term care insurance? We go through that, and then we sit down and we just get to know them, and we ask them, what's important to you. What are, X, Y, and Z things you want to see and get out of your plan as well? So it's not just about us trying to put them in a box. We can say, okay, this is a perfect product for you to fit. We're going to find this perfect product for you to solve all your problems, or, perfect portfolio to come in and solve all your problems. It's not what we're here to do. We're here to really get to know that client, and we do the hard work and dig as deep as we possibly can.
I like to hear that.
And we want to know about lifestyle too. We want to know about their health as well. There's all
lifestyle has a lot to do with it.
Well, there's all sorts of challenges, Gary. No two people are the same, so you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. That's why the goals meeting is so great. Is that everybody's going to come out different. No two people are going to be the same.
Folks, you are listening to On the Mark, along with Mark Pappa. I'm Gary Byron. Mark is the president and CEO of Financial Resources Group. They're out of Glastonbury. You can find them online at www.frplan, and you can call them at 860-657-8380. Again, 860-657-8380. I'll repeat more of that more towards the end of the show. All right, so once you've done that deep dive, Mark, once you know what someone is truly trying to accomplish, how then do you translate that into a portfolio? Because I think a lot of people, they kind of assume, a portfolio is just like picking stocks or funds, but what are you actually building here?
Well, once I get to know the client, again, some of these questions that the goals-based planning teach advisors to ask, let me give you one I would never ask you, okay? Right here. What does success look like in 5 years? Okay, 5 years is cool. But who can project out 5 years? Can you?
That's a lot easier than 10 years.
Can you predict the future?
Well,
can
no,
anybody?
Of course nobody can.
But what would it look like what's the point of asking? Because here's the deal. We don't project. We don't use projections in our plans either. We don't say, hey, if we just make 6% a year, we're going to be worth this much, so you only need to do that. We avoid that. We plan every year, Gary. Every 12 months, we sit down and say, where are we going to get our money this year? Where are we going to pull it from? How are we going to supplement our income? How are we going to supplement our lifestyle? Oh, we're going on a cruise this year. Where are we going to get the money for the cruise? Right? Mm. So that's what we do. We have those meetings versus, hey, Mark, we're going on a cruise. I need 20 grand. And it's, the absolute wrong time to pull the 20 grand. When are you going on the cruise? Now, let's learn you're going to be planning a cruise in 2027. It's 2026 now. Let's kind of figure it out in 26 so that the money's available in 20. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just being very proactive on that. But, what the portfolio is literally the last thing we build, Gary. The last thing, not the first thing.
Okay.
The last thing.
Well, you got to get the answer to the goals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then whatever those goals are, that's where, the portfolio gets built. There might be other safe assets that clients like. Some people need short-term liquidity. but they may not need it for a year. So, you can park those monies in things like CDs and short-term treasuries. Warren Buffett's a big fan of short-term treasuries. There might be some fixed annuities if they have a 5-year time horizon, so you can do stuff like that. But just, make sure that all their money, you don't want everyone's money exposed to market volatility, especially when they need it. So what we also do is making sure they have enough money to live, right? So we plan the income stream. So once we know the goals and there's these different areas or different buckets of their life, and different needs or different potential liabilities or we call contingencies, then what we can do is we do what's called our SAIL plan, which is your strategic asset income ladder. Mm-hmm. And then we have your 5-year bucket of income. And then when that's running out, this is where you're going to get money for the next 5. And then we have a 10-year bucket. Once those first two buckets are exhausted, all we do is we shift the 10-year bucket over and we create 2 more buckets, slowly but surely. We just keep rolling it and rolling it and rolling it until essentially, you pass away. Certainly, and then whatever's left over gets hopefully left to your heirs. And if you plan correctly and get lucky, you don't have a big, long-term care bill and you're not sitting in a nursing home for 5 years that wipes you out. So that's another thing we like to talk about too is what money would you use to pay for your long-term care in the event that, and we hate talking about it, but you have to, what would you use to pay for your long-term care bills?
Yeah, right.
I
know some people may be in their car or sitting home just listening to this, and they're thinking, well, my guy at the bank, he does planning too. So what's actually different, though, about your approach versus a plan that, let's say, comes out of a wirehouse or one of those broker dealers?
Well, I mean, the difference is that we're privately owned. We're not corporate owned. I don't work for a broker dealer. I don't work for a bank. The bank is in business to make money. Okay, they want to do a good job for you, but they're in business to make money. I can show you even in our own firm, we are the independent side, and I looked at the corporate side of our firm. Well, one of the firms is Schwab, and had a client come in or a prospect come in, and he was frustrated with the fact, and he just understood it is what it is, and they're a company and they need to make money too. But they had 12.5% of his money just not even in the money market. It was in some kind of sweep account that wasn't paying anything. And that's how they designed the portfolio. And that frustrated him. But there was nothing he can do to change it because that's the deal. That was the deal. That was the program he was in. So the only way to change that program is to change the advisor, right? change what you're doing. But, some people will say, well, I made my 12, 13% last year. I'm happy, so I'm not going to complain. However, they do realize that they're leaving money on the table. So we don't put anybody in a box. We're not putting anyone in a box. It's highly customized. And then we'll have access to certain products that may not be available at the big firms. And the big firms have their fan favorites. Your BlackRocks, your State Streets, right, your big, right, large, very liquid exchange-traded funds, or some of these older legacy mutual funds and money managers that have been around for several decades. So we're looking to continually innovate, continually improve. So I would say what makes me really different is I'm nimble. I can change on a dime. If there's a better product for you or something that we see after doing a lot of research is going to be in the best interest of our client, I can jump right on it. I don't have to wait to put it through compliance and wait for all these people to review it. I don't have to do any of that.
You're getting calls already.
Yeah. I don't have to wait to do any of that stuff. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. And then it also gives us the ability to sit down as a team and sit down as a team and review what, the different strategies for people. But the main thing is to just even on the financial planning side, if we're not stuck. If a company, we're not happy with the company that we're working with, or they're not doing their job, I can just cut them loose and go hire a new company to help us. I can hire the software company, go with a new one. I don't have to wait for the firm to, redesign the software the way I like it. So we have a lot more flexibility and a lot more ability to do customized planning, but also the goals-based planning that is basically in your best interest, everything in your best interest, not just our best interest or the bank's best interest.
I'm out of time. I can't even ask you the next question because I only have about 2.5 minutes left. We'll have to save it. I was going to ask you, and I'll do a little teaser. If you could maybe walk us through some actual situations where your customized approach made actually a tangible difference. Maybe some problems that a big firm simply wouldn't be able to solve that way. But I've got 2 minutes remaining. I need you to do a disclaimer, and then I'm going to give some points of contact and wrap it up.
Absolutely. So, again, this interview is informational and for informational educational purposes only. It doesn't constitute investment advice. Financial Resources Group, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All investment strategies involve risk, including the potential for loss of principal. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And that's it. So, again, your question was...
Wow. I got about 1.5 minutes remaining. I have several
every single client is a case study, so I don't want to reveal too much. But I can say that the sale plan, when we do the sale plan, or maybe it's for a Roth blueprint, the sale plan really helped a client of mine, and not only the sales plan, but the tax planning. So I did a sale plan and combined that with a tax plan. And we were able to not only have this gentleman retire in 2022 when the market was down, he actually was able to not reduce his principal balance. He was able to spend his money, paid all his bills, didn't go backwards, didn't have to change his lifestyle, didn't get crushed in the market. And his wife was still working. He's got a lot more money that normally would have knocked somebody out of the box. Because, again, remember I talked about that 20% drawdown?
Right.
Yeah, we didn't have that problem. So, he's in great shape because of the way we planned for the income, the 5-year bucket, and then also added a tax savings strategy to where he pulled some money from his regular IRA. This is pre-Social Security, some money from his brokerage account, some money from his Roth. And that carried him for a couple years. And he ended up with, at the end, more money than when he had when he began. So
that's a great story. I'm glad you snuck that in. I want to hear some more, maybe next week. Folks, if you'd like more information on Mark, on Financial Resources Group, very easy to get. Head online to www.frplan, F as in Frank, R-Plan, frplan.com. Call right now. Schedule your no-obligation consultation with Mark Pappa, 860-657-8380. Again, 860-657-8380. Financial Resources Group out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. For Mark Pappa, I'm Gary Byron. Thank you so much for listening to On the Mark with Financial Resources Group. Until next weekend, have a good one, everybody. So long.